Let's go a Viking on Viking Hot Takes.
Viking Hot Takes. Welcome to week one. It's the Minnesota Vikings versus the Cincinnati Bengals. It's the purple debut for Mike Zimmer's last defensive version of the Minnesota Vikings. This is his build with Patrick Peterson, Michael Pierce, Dalvin Tomlinson, Xavier Woods, and Bashaud Breeland. If it all goes well, Zimmer could be here for another 5 years. I mean, we got a new kicker, we got a new punter, and we got a game to win on Sunday. Eric Thompson, how are you doing, my man?
I am doing well. We are 3 days away from real football because Lord knows we need something different than what we saw in the preseason. We need this Vikings team at full strength because those 3 preseason games were kind of a struggle and a slog to get through. So we're going to see what the real deal looks like. Hopefully, at one point, I believe I had no fewer than 3 authentic Adrian Peterson jerseys in my closet. I had the old school 2012 one, and then when they changed the jerseys, I had to get a home and away with that one.
Yeah,
so, I mean, he's always been one of my favorite football players. And a lot of people do know this. I have admitted this, but my oldest daughter's middle name happens to be Adrian. But that was before the trouble he got into. But that was before the trouble he got in the field. So now, if my daughter asked me, growing up, I'll just have to tell her I'm a really big Rocky fan or something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's always going to be one of my favorite football players of all time, especially for the Vikings. I mean, he hit AP at his absolute prime it was just a thing to behold. I mean, no one could run the ball faster, harder, stronger than him. I mean, I still think Barry Sanders is probably the best running back I've seen in my lifetime, but Adrian Peterson might be the most naturally gifted running back, and he's definitely up there in the top 2 or 3. So, I mean, I think it's kind of bittersweet for me. He's always going to be one of my favorite Vikings football players, but I think he kind of became the final kind of eye-opening version of, don't get to know your heroes too well, or don't meet your heroes. I mean, because it's the off the field stuff does tarnish his, I think, long-term legacy, but there's no doubting what he did on the field here in Minnesota.
Yeah, he definitely, I don't think I can disagree with anything you said there. I mean, he was a definition of a flawed hero. And in both of those words just ring so true when it comes to Adrian Peterson. Flawed in certain ways and absolutely heroic for what he did on the field for the Minnesota Vikings for those 10 years, a decade of Adrian Peterson, where, I mean, he was the only guy, a team with terrible receivers and even worse quarterbacks, a man who battled back from knee injury, severe knee injury, to post the second best season of all time among running backs. It's wild for him to be just such a mixed emotional bag for Minnesota Vikings fans, because there's no denying both sides of that story.
Yeah, and that 2012 season was absolutely incredible. I mean, Christian Ponder. He brought Christian Ponder to the playoffs. I mean, I mean, it was pretty incredible. Well, for my first question, we're going to go a little more modern. The news of the day, or the news of the week, is Brian O'Neill's big contract extension, putting him right up there with the top right tackles in the league. My question is pretty simple. Will his big contract extension be worth the money?
5 years, $92.5 million. 53 million guaranteed. It's a lot of money. But who else are we going to give this money to?
Bingo.
What other Viking is more deserving of a second contract? And, Eric, we have this idea in society that rarity is valued. Rare items fetch a higher price. Nothing is more rare in Minnesota than a competent offensive lineman. Okay.
Absolutely.
The dude has allowed 5 sacks in 46 games. If Brian O'Neill doesn't live up to this deal, I'm not going to sit here and say they made a mistake. He's been solid as a rookie. He's made significant steps his first 3 seasons. So, for him, now it's time for the next step. It's time for leadership. And I think he has that in him too. So I think it'll be worth the money.
Yeah, I mean, unless his long-term health becomes a major factor, if he misses, if he has some sort of really bad injury or something like that, and he takes a big step back, I think it's going to be worth it. Again, I mean, that's. I think you touched on it. Yes, it's a lot of money to give a guy right after his first contract, former second-round pick. But I mean, I believe it's Jalen Rose. I've always liked his statement. It's not, you don't get what you're worth, you get what you have the leverage to negotiate, and Brian ONeill definitely had the leverage. I mean, the Vikings.
Yeah.
I've joked around. It's like now that we only have to worry about 80% of the offensive line because we got one side locked up. We got that right tackle. We don't know if Darrisaw is going to be good yet because he hasn't played yet. Bradbury is still kind of out, and the guards have always been an adventure. But now that the Vikings have that one piece going forward, and if Darrisaw works out, I mean, there's a lot of, it's like a lot of first and second round picks along that offensive line. They could finally be building some semblance of something dependable on the line. And yes, it was a lot of money, but again, his contract is going to get leapfrogged over the next 3-4 years. It's always the newest contract is always the best in the NFL because the numbers keep on going up. So I think overall, again, unless he misses a ton of time, it's definitely going to be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to bet on an offensive lineman, you bet on Brian ONeill.
For sure.
All right, Eric. Question number 2 for you. Let's get on to week 1. Vikings at Bengals. Give me one offensive and one defensive X factor.
Okay. Well, on offense, I already mentioned kind of last week, I think the overall season X factor is whoever steps up as that third wide receiver pass catching option behind Thielen and Jefferson. So this week, I think I'm probably going to stick on that offensive line and say Oli Udoh because he's kind of the most unknown on that offensive line. I definitely think he's earned the spot at right guard. I definitely think he's a pretty big upgrade over Dakota Dozier, but how much of an upgrade is really going to make a difference. And it's not like in his prime, Geno Atkins is right in the middle of that the Bengals defensive line, but they're an improved unit. They should be a better defense than what they showed last year, and I think it's a good initial test to see if the moving him into the inside was a good move. Not only with the running game, because I think the Vikings will definitely do a lot of that, and Dalvin Cook will make you look a lot better and the run blocking, but the pass blocking, I think that's a really big thing. Again, we've talked about several times on this show that the easiest way to get to Kirk Cousins is up the middle. And if Udoh can start to make that part of the Vikings offense a little more reliable, I think that's huge. Now defense, I think probably we might have to go with Nick Vigil, the former Bengal, because I really think the way it sounds right now as of Thursday night, Barr didn't practice today, and he was limited yesterday, and basically he didn't practice because he was sore coming back from that knee injury. So either it sounds like he's going to be extremely limited on Sunday, or he might not play at all together. So that's going to leave Nick Vigil to try to be that Eric Wilson, do his best Eric Wilson impression, and we'll see
if
he's doing that. Yeah, I mean, like he's going to get a lot of snaps, and I think it's going to. Yeah, it's because I think there's a lot of new pieces already, and adding Vigil into that is going to be probably an area that the Bengals try to attack over the middle. With they have 3 pretty potent wide receivers, so it should be interesting to see how Vigil can step into probably a bigger role than he expected heading into the season.
Okay, well, do you think that like Zach Taylor is going to attack Vigil? Like, how would they go about that?
Well, I think he probably knows how to attack Vigil because Vigil was on the team last year. But like, I think Vigil has a lot of similarities to Wilson. I think he doesn't have quite the extremes of Wilson's game. Where Wilson was so good in coverage, but really a big liability in run defense. I don't think Vigil is either to that extreme, but I think they share a lot of the same traits. Vigil's definitely better in coverage, I think, against the run. So if they can maybe get Mixon or the tight end and maybe a slot receiver in a mismatch on Vigil, maybe they'll go after him.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most interesting part of that Bengals offense is, are they going to target our weaknesses or just, try to run the ball with Joe Mixon? I mean, it's really hard to tell what this Bengals team is going to be good at. They're built to pass the ball now. We'll see if they actually do start doing that again after last year with Burrow back.
Yeah, and with Mixon back, because he missed the last 10 games of the season, I think, too. So they just like the Vikings, they have a lot of pieces returning from injury last year.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. All right. Well, for my second question, which I'm sticking to that defense, which new or returning, because we have a couple pieces that are coming back, they're getting the gang back together. Which new piece in the 2021 defense will have the biggest impact for the Vikings on Sunday?
So I think it has to be on the front line for what we were just talking about. If they lean on Joe Mixon, then it's going to be key game for Dalvin Tomlinson. I think we can count on him to be involved on several run stops against what looks like a weak interior offensive lineman. I think they have, Quentin Spain and just in the interior there. So I think the Bengals will actually come out passing, which is really interesting because we don't know what this pass game looks like. They have Jamar Chase, a new addition, with T. Higgins and Joe Burrow now. T. Higgins coming off a very good year, and Tyler Boyd being a consistent wide receiver number 3. So it kind of makes sense for the Bengals to use those guys against our cornerbacks and not go with Joe Mixon because they don't want to play into their own weakness. So if that's the case, if they're going to pass the ball, we're looking at ONeill Big Game Hunter. And I wish this was a more creative answer, but it's ONeill Hunter's first game back in almost 2 years. I see him getting his first 2 sacks of the season. I think he's going to be hyped. I want to see like 7 pressures and 3 run stops, just a monster game from our star defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. From everything we've seen from ONeill Hunter in the preseason, it looks like he's going to, I wrote in my preview article, it looks like he's going to go John Wick on opposing tackles. I mean, he is just going to destroy worlds. I think that he looks like he is all the way back, and you're right. I think the Bengals offensive line is a lot like the Vikings offensive line. Like the tackles are okay. I mean, they have our old friend Riley Reif. He's going to make the start at right tackle, and they have a former first round pick in Jonah Williams on the other side at left tackle. So it's a solid bookends of tackle, but they are definitely still pretty weak. And they had the same kind of thing as the Vikings did. They kind of had addition by subtraction. They got rid of a couple pieces, but they're still pretty unproven in the middle. So I can definitely see that the defensive line. But I'm with you. I think the Bengals are really going to. I think the new interior defensive line is going to keep Joe Mixon in check, especially between the tackles. I think they're going to have to pass a lot more, and that's why I'm choosing Patrick Peterson. I think I think that the Cincinnati receiving core they're pretty legit. I mean, again, we can make fun of Jamar Chase and all his drops in the preseason and his trouble with the size and the color of the football or whatever the story that came out today, but we should know better than to doubt first-round picks from LSU. I mean, we saw it last year. No, I'm not saying Chase is going to be as good as Justin Jefferson was last year, but Chase is the 5th overall pick for a reason. I think he's going to be okay. And Higgins and Boyd, they're legit. That is a good 1-2-3 combination. And Patrick Peterson and Brashad Breeland too. They're going to have to be on top of their game. I think they're both good corners. I think Peterson is a really good fit for this Zimmer defense. I've really liked what I've seen from Breeland in the preseason as well.
Yeah.
It's just that we're relying on a lot of new pieces, and those pieces, they can't mix up their coverage. They can't get beat deep because those 3 receivers can absolutely beat you. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I think P2 and Breeland they're going to have to be on point right away. Otherwise, they could allow some big plays. I mean, we've seen a bunch of big plays in this Cowboys and Bucks game. Again, that's probably different caliber, and the Cowboys secondary is still kind of a mess the way it sounds, but the Vikings could very well, if they're not getting their communication right and if they're not getting their assignments right, the Bengals could absolutely take advantage of that. So I think as long as they keep everything in front of them, I think, and with Hunter and the weakness of the inside of the Cincinnati offensive line, I think they can definitely keep Burrow in check and get to pressuring him and keep the Bengals from scoring a lot of points. But there's always a potential for the big play. So that'll be interesting to watch in on Sunday.
Yeah, that'll be a good matchup out there. Like you said, it's going to be so much fun to watch all these new pieces on the same field together.
For sure.
Let's get to the next question.
All right.
Eric, let's just keep it simple on offense. How many targets for Justin Jefferson in week 1?
I mean, it better be more than week 1 last year. I just still couldn't believe, that it took to that, what was it, the Titans game in week 3. It's like, oh, this guy's good.
Oh,
Yeah, it turns out, maybe we should
yeah.
give him some more snaps. So I don't think they're going to run into that problem. I don't think they're going to basically ignore him for the first 2 weeks. In my
Mm-hmm.
mind, it better be at least in that 8 to 10 range because
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
no slow starts this time around. I think the Bengals secondary, they're another unit that's kind of, at least on paper, should be a little better than last year. But Trey Waynes, who went to the Bengals last year, still has not played in a single game for the Bengals, and it sounds like he's already been
Wild.
ruled out. And that is just nuts. I mean, I feel
So
terrible for Waynes.
wild.
Like I still I thought, when
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati gave him that new contract, I was like, all right, that's fine. I think they paid too much, but to have him not play a single game, and this will be game number 17 that Waynes has been a Bengal, that's
That's
a really
true.
tough break. And that
Yeah.
leaves Eli Apple, who's on I believe, his 4th team. Yeah, he was a first-round pick in 2016. His career passer rating allowed, according to PFF, is over 100. He's hasn't really been that great. He's gonna draw one of those straws between Thielen, Jefferson, and Chidobe Awuzie. I believe I'm saying it correctly. I hope I am.
Yeah.
He's a new addition
Mm-hmm.
as well. They have a lot of new pieces. Both those guys are new to the Bengals. It's a lot like Breland and Peterson, just with a little less experience and previous success, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm covering them when Jefferson and Thielen are outside. That's going to be really tough for them. And what I do like, the one player that I'd watch out for is Mike Hilton. I think he's a pretty darn good slot corner. The Bengals
Okay.
picked him up from Pittsburgh. He was a pretty good performer in that Pittsburgh defense. Again, you wonder how much of it is the Tomlin and Pittsburgh defensive system. They're usually pretty sound in that secondary, so maybe he won't have quite as much success with the Bengals. But so maybe things across the middle will be a little tougher. But I mean, Jefferson can get it open on anyone. That's if you give him, unless you're blanketing him the entire game and you're just daring Thielen and whoever else to beat you, I think Jefferson's got to get his target. So I'm
Yeah.
looking for him to get in that 8 to 10 target range, get him a couple red zone targets, maybe even try to get creative, do some of those the Tyreek Hill kind of things where it's technically a pass, but it's basically a glorified jet sweep kind of thing like that. Just get the ball in your playmaker's hands, because that's the Vikings have 3 playmakers on the offense, 3 certain playmakers on this offense. They have Jefferson, they have Thielen, they have Dalvin Cook. Those 3 better see a lot of the ball, because everything
Yeah.
else is kind of an unknown heading into week 1. So, I mean, what are you comfortable with? Are you still thinking that 8 to 10 range? You
Yeah.
throwing it to him like every first down? What are you doing?
Man, I think like 8 to 10 might be too low. And
That's my
like
starting point. More is absolutely okay. It has to be at least 8 to 10 for me.
uh, I love this question because it's about our favorite player right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves Justin Jefferson, but it also looks into his matchup, like you said, easy matchup. It looks into the offensive coordinator, okay? Like this has to be like a wrinkle for Clint Kubiak to clearly add to this offense. If he knows his personnel, he'll be able to see this matchup easily and take advantage of it. I mean, what is the offense this year? I think we're going to learn that the answer to will they feed Justin Jefferson like they should at 12 targets for me.
I
Okay.
like it.
Like Dalvin, I know Dalvin's going to be an option, probably option A, but like I want to see them target Justin Jefferson with intent early and often. He might have the most targets of his career in this game. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're going to leave this game saying, "Hey, I don't." I think they threw it to Justin Jefferson too much. I don't think we're going to leave
Right?
that. So
Yeah,
the more the
exactly.
better. All right, we got
All
1 minute left on the clock, so we got to make this last one quick. Easy one.
let's do
What's your
it.
what's your final score prediction for Sunday?
No excuses week 1 this year. There's a chance this turns out into a shootout, but the offense should operate unhindered. I'm going to say Vikings 30, Bengals 21. So 9-point win for our Vikings.
Okay. Well, I think, I mean, I already wrote this. I posted it in my week 1 prediction on Daily Norseman earlier today. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a rock fight. I think both teams are still going to be working out some of the kinks. I trust the Vikings defense is going to improve. I don't think the Bengals are there yet. I still wonder about this Vikings offense. I'm trying to get the preseason out of my head because they weren't full strength, but I think they're going to have to work out some of the kinks. There's going to be some frustrating drives. There might be a couple stretches where it just looks like they aren't clicking. But overall, I'm still picking the Vikings. Just beat the spread though, 20-16. I'm going to take the under and the Vikings.
Let's go. Great takes. Well said, Eric. And thank y'all for watching Vikings Hot Takes. It's Thursday night, so we're going to get you back to the second half of the game, Cowboys versus Buccaneers. But if you liked listening, tune into the Climbing Pocket Network. We're going all week long, before and after the big game on Sunday. See you on the other side, Eric.
Can't wait. We'll see ya.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.